What's happening, everybody? Hope y'all had a good Thanksgiving. Hopefully, Thanksgiving football treated you well. And of course, the holiday in general, however you spent it. But we got week 12, and we've only got a couple of weeks left to the fantasy playoffs. So it's crunch time. Um, it's probably do or die time for a lot of teams. So we got some important decisions to figure out. Let's get through those today, and let's get these dubs as we make our way to the fantasy playoffs. Just a recap over the past 24 hours or so, just taking a look at a couple of different things. We'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Kadarius Toney is out today. Mecole Hardman has been placed on injured reserve. So I guess Rashee Rice gets a boost. Richie James has been activated off IR. Whatever. Justin Watson gets a boost. Sky Moore gets a boost. Ultimately, Rice is an interesting wide receiver 3, probably more on the wide receiver 4 border. It's been very up and down with these Chiefs pass catchers, and it's tough to trust them even with a couple of guys down, shrinking in theory the target share. So we're going to go ahead and look to avoid all of those guys. Marshawn Lattimore has been placed on injured reserve for the Saints, so that's a big loss for them. They get the Falcons today. Big break for Drake London. So you can fire him up with a little bit more confidence than you normally would, even though the Falcons' offense on the whole is incredibly difficult to trust. What's going on, Crumply? It's good to see you, dude. Hopefully it was a good Thanksgiving. Rachaad White popped up on the injury report yesterday. It looks like he will play. I almost said he will be fine, but he's just expected to play. Could he see a few less touches, a few less opportunities? Maybe. I think you still need to fire him up. He has been rock solid for the past month, if not longer. I don't think you have a choice. You have to fire him up. Dameon Pierce is expected to play, so Devin Singletary takes a little bit of a hit, but you got to figure Singletary is going to remain the top guy in that backfield. He has been better. He has looked better. I can't imagine Pierce is anything more than a change of pace option for the Texans at this point. Singletary has looked a lot better, has been a lot better. I think just because Pierce is back, he will get involved, but Singletary should stay the top guy. So if you're hurting at running back, you can continue to fire him up. Let's see. Marquise Brown was on the injury report, but he will play. I've been on the Marquise Brown bandwagon with Kyler's return, but the production hasn't quite been there in a way that you would expect it to be. So we temper expectations for him a little bit, especially with him being on the injury report. Gerald Everett likely to play, even if you're hurting at tight end. That is a situation to avoid. Odell Beckham is expected to play. Zay Flowers is expected to play. This is Sunday night between the Chargers and the Ravens, so you can fire up Flowers. Beckham, less confidence in him. And then the big one continues to be Justin Jefferson. He's listed as questionable, but the reports are that he's unlikely to play week 12. I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back a little bit for that one because I said exercise caution with Justin Jefferson when he went down, when he went on IR. it was entirely possible that he wasn't going to play through the bye week, and that's looking like it's coming to fruition. Jefferson unlikely to go in week 12. The Vikings are playing the Bears. Full disrespect to the Bears. The Vikings should not need Justin Jefferson to beat them. So with the bye week next week, they get an extra week of rest for Justin Jefferson for their star wide receiver. He will not, it's looking unlikely. And with that game being on Monday night, it's incredibly difficult to trust Justin Jefferson unless you have KJ Osborne ready to go, or I guess like a Darnell Mooney, which you don't really want to pivot to. Unless you have one of those guys, it's kind of tough to pivot to Justin Jefferson or to try to fire up Justin Jefferson with any type of confidence. Look for other options. Look for alternatives. Hopefully you can absorb the weight until week 14 because that's probably the next time we see Justin Jefferson. And then for whatever this is worth, Mac Jones will start today, but they might give Bailey Zappi some snaps. The Patriots, I mean, this is a mess. The Patriots are a mess. They need to hit the reset button this year. I don't know. You got to think it's over for Bill Belichick, and it's probably coming to an end for Mac Jones as well. They will be in a position to get they will likely be in a position to get one of the top signal callers in the draft this year. And that's something that they should absolutely look into or pull the trigger on, essentially. That's a little quick whip around of injury updates as we move into the week 12 slate. So I can start taking questions, start take questions for this week. As usual, whether you guys are new or have been around the block, just as a reminder, members will get first priority. If you are a member of this channel, you get to jump the line as far as asking questions. That is one of the perks of being a member. If you're feeling generous enough to offer a super, I won't ask for it, but if you do, that will be a line jumper as well. I did have a technical. I'll just fire off this heads up now. I did have a technical issue last week for start sit help, and I did have to reset the stream just as somebody shared a super with me. So just as an FYI, if there's any issues, technical or otherwise, with the stream, I will fire up another one. So if your question gets lost in a potential issue with technical difficulties, just keep notifications on. I will fire up another stream. Hopefully that doesn't end up happening again. Otherwise, I will get to everybody else. I just ask for some patience. And if you're feeling so inclined, if you could please like the stream, that helps for algorithm purposes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Crumbly Heads, is it full PPR? If it's full PPR, I think I'm okay with Connor over Nico, Nico over Connor. But if it's half PPR, I feel like most people who follow me here, generally speaking, play full PPR. Then it's fine to go wide receiver over the running back. But Connor's been pretty solid. With Kyler in the lineup, with Kyler out of the lineup, now with Kyler back, you figure his floor is pretty safe moving forward. 14 for 62 last week against Houston. He only had, 2 catches for 1 yard, so not really any receiving work. So these numbers don't blow the doors off, but it is 16 opportunities the past 2 weeks. All he needs to do is fall into the end zone to end up with a high-end RB2, low-end RB1 performance, given the volume that he gets. So we want to keep that in mind for somebody like James Conner. But if it's full PPR and you're between those two guys, I guess, Nico's fine as well. He's in a really good spot today. Nothing scary about the matchup against Jacksonville. They are allowing top 5 production to opposing wide receivers. As far as Downs, Nico Sutton, Cooper, Mixon, Hollywood, I think you got to play. I guess you got to play Mixon. The Bengals offense is incredibly downgraded without Joe Burrow, but Mixon figures to see decent volume, continues to see decent volume. I would probably play Nico. Good matchup against the Jaguars. I mean, Cooper's tough to trust from here on out with DTR being the starter. Sutton is in a brutal matchup against the Browns today. And while the connection hasn't quite been there with Kyler and Marquise Brown, at least he is still the top receiver, the top option in theory on a game to game basis, on a week to week basis. Mixon has to be in. Nico has to be in, and I would probably, I guess, play Marquise Brown over among those guys. Who do the Colts have today? Um, I'm blanking on their matchup. Tampa Bay. Actually, that's a really good matchup at home. That's a really good matchup at home for Downs. The problem with suggesting Downs for me is any given week he's not the team's wide receiver one. It's Michael Pittman. Marquise Brown should be the Cardinals wide receiver one each week. Downs is not necessarily the team's wide receiver one each week. A lot of times it's probably going to be Pittman. But that matchup is really, really good. Tampa Bay secondary has not been very good. All right, I would maybe go Downs for the matchup. So Mixon, Nico, Downs. I think that's where I would go, Crumply Heads. Nico and Connor is standard. Then I would maybe go Connor. If the Nico versus Connor question is standard, then I would probably go the running back because he's a safe bet for 15 carries, and they are at home. Connor's getting the opportunities. And then for the group, I would go Mixon, Nico, and Downs in a great matchup. There's nothing super scary about the matchup with Marquise Brown against the Rams, but after looking at the numbers, double checking the numbers, the connection hasn't quite been there yet with him and Kyler, whereas it's been fine with Gardner Minshew and Downs. And it's a great matchup against Tampa Bay. They're getting cooked by opposing wide receivers in general and specifically against slot wide receivers, which is where Downs is primarily lining up. So I would go Mixon, Nico, and Downs, but I would go Connor over Nico in standard scoring. All right. And then Ridley, Connor, Nico, Olave. Man, Olave has been so disappointing with Derek Carr. Is Carr playing today? I guess that's another thing I needed to keep up on. I might be a little behind on availability. Yeah, okay, he's been removed from the injury report. I don't think that's necessarily great news for Chris Olave. Meanwhile, Jacksonville has a potential shootout on their hands against Houston. Standard. Ridley, Connor, Olave. Ridley, Connor, Olave. Play the running back. Ridley came back to life last week, so maybe chase that for one more week. And I'll take the talent in Olave. I'll keep going back to the well. Ridley, Connor, Olave. I like Nico quite a bit, but those other like Ridley came back to life last week, so I might want to chase that. And Olave is just, I mean, with no Michael Thomas, he's gotta soak up 10 to 12 targets. That should be fair to expect. All right, coming back up to the top. Njoku, Schultz, or McBride. I think you got to play McBride. I think McBride is a top 3 play at tight end this week. Um, the production has been there. The volume has been there. The matchup is great. The Rams are giving up lots of production to opposing tight ends. What's the status of Ertz? What's the status of Zach Ertz? He's still on injured reserve. He is eligible to play today. I haven't seen anything about his availability. Is he going to stay on IR or is he going to be activated? Either way, even if he does get activated, I would play McBride. I don't see anything, so maybe he's not going to play this week. Has he practiced? I don't see any recent updates. I would play McBride. I would play McBride. The matchup is great. Even if Ertz comes back, you figure it's probably in a limited fashion. The Cardinals should be embracing the future, should be embracing a youth movement. Um, McBride should be front and center at that. You would think they want to continue to get him as many opportunities as possible. The matchup is spectacular. Um, I would go McBride. To that point, if you play McBride, if it's the same league, you might as well play Kyler. Just stack it up. I mean, they're both top 10 options. Kyler, I would guess I give the slight nod to because of his ability to scramble, his ability to run. Um, if this is the same league, I would go Kyler and McBride. And honestly, I would probably go Kyler anyway for the rushing upside over Herbert. Rap Sheet reports that the Steelers will be targeting George Pickens more and giving more carries to Jalen Warren. I mean, you can say these things, but I mean, we'll see if it plays out that way. Maybe Deontay's in the doghouse because he got into an altercation with Minka Fitzpatrick in the locker room last week. I don't know if you guys saw that report. You probably did. What are they punishing Deontay? I mean, that's fine. I don't know how you necessarily just say that and oh, so this is how it's going to be. I mean, you can give more carries to Warren, just put him on the damn field. But as far as targeting Pickens more, I mean, you could try. Is he getting open as frequently as Deontay? Or are they just punishing Deontay for getting into an altercation with a teammate? We'll see, I guess. We'll see. Anyway, McBride over those other tight ends and Kyler over Herbert. As far as Kirk versus Flowers, did I see full PPR? I did. I would probably go Kirk. He had a bit of a down week last week, but he's still been pretty rock solid. Although he has been less good when Zay Jones plays. And Zay Jones is questionable. He's listed questionable. Kirk has been better with Jones out of the lineup than in the lineup. But I would probably play Kirk. Flowers was on the injury report earlier this week. Yeah, I mean Flowers should get more opportunities with Mark Andrews out. That's just a evergreen thought process here any given week. But he has been on the injury report this week, so I guess I would just tend to lean with the guy who hasn't been on the injury report, and that's Kirk. You feel a little less strongly about him if Zay Jones is able to go, but this is a game with potential shootout implications. Jacksonville's on the road, so they're going to need to stay aggressive against a division opponent that is right on their heels as far as who's going to win this division. I would probably lean Kirk. Singletary or Connor, Crumbly heads. I would go Connor because Dameon Pierce is back. Is Demercado back for the Cardinals this week? He's still on the injury report as questionable. He's expected to play. That could be an annoying wrinkle for Connor, but with Dameon Pierce definitely back, I would go Connor over Singletary. Connor's been getting the usage. Singletary should get more work or should continue to get most of the work in the Texans backfield, but um, I'll take Connor. He's the best option in that backfield. Two running backs and a flex. Mixon, Taylor, Mitchell, Williams. Okay. I would. Well, you're playing Taylor. Taylor's a layup. Taylor has to be in every lineup. He's a top 5 option. Between running backs and wide receivers this week, you have to play Taylor. That is a foregone conclusion. It's pretty much down to like Kyren Williams versus Keaton Mitchell. And with Kyren Williams back in that matchup against Arizona, I would probably go Kyren. I think you're playing those 3 running backs. You're playing Taylor, you're playing Mixon, you're playing Kyren Williams. Those other wide receivers, Zay Flowers is good, but for the purposes of fantasy, he doesn't eclipse those running backs and the usage they're likely to get. Taylor, Mixon. I would go Kyren Williams over Keaton Mitchell. He's back. He should. They cut Darrell Henderson, so that's got to be a vote of confidence for Kyren Williams and his availability today, and his availability to handle the load today. And the matchup is too good to ignore. Arizona gives up over a touchdown per game to opposing backfields. Taylor, Mixon, Kyren Williams for sure. Wide receiver, running back, and a flex between Pittman, Nico, Chase, Taylor, Kyren, Ford. Chase, Chase is annoying because he doesn't have Burrow from here on out, but I think you have to still go back to him. Pittman is in a beautiful matchup against Tampa Bay, so I would play him. You have to play Taylor. There's no Jonathan Taylor. Like, let me put it this way. There are no start-sit questions pertaining to Jonathan Taylor. He is in your lineup. If Taylor is on your bench, this goes for everybody. You've made a mistake. Jonathan Taylor needs to be in starting lineups over pretty much everybody other than every running back other than obviously Christian McCaffrey, who already went on Thanksgiving. So Taylor for sure. I would say Pittman, and then I guess I would go Chase since it's full PPR, and you just hope for the best. Kyren, you can afford to wait a week on. Ford is in a good matchup, but you have other options that I like better. Taylor, and then Chase and Pittman. Pittman's got a great matchup. Chase is Jamar Chase. What's going on, Greg? Good to see you, man. It was a good Thanksgiving. I got a chance to go home for the first time in a few years and spend time with family. It was good. So appreciate y'all's patience. I was not around this week, but I knew I could do this one. So at least I'm available for at least one stream ahead of the Sunday slate. Well, Noah Brown is out. So he's not up for consideration today. Between Kyren and Nico, if it's full PPR, I would go Nico. If it's not, then I would probably consider Kyren Williams over Nico. Full PPR, I would play Nico. Standard or half PPR, I would play Kyren Williams. And Noah Brown is out. And for quarterback, I would go Lawrence over Dobbs. He finally had a great game last week. It took forever for that to happen, but I would go Lawrence over Dobbs. Dobbs is a QB2 until Justin Jefferson comes back. Lawrence is a top 10 option. And I think we can definitively say that after last week, at least for one more week about Trevor Lawrence. So I would play Lawrence over Dobbs. until Justin Jefferson returns. So, yeah. Kyron over Nico unless it's full PPR, and Lawrence over Dobbs for sure. All right. Full PPR, you need Murray, Stroud, or Lawrence. Ugh. Is this one quarterback? You got to trade one of those guys, man. You got too many quarterbacks. You got to trade at least one of those dudes. I would probably just go Stroud. He's been unbelievable this year. He's at home. He's got Nico. He's got Tank Dell, who's been a machine. He gets his backfield. He's got Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. I don't know if Pierce helps anything at all in this offense. Dalton Schultz has been solid. Stroud himself has just been awesome. You got to play Stroud. And then maybe if the trade deadline has passed, then that's unfortunate. But if it hasn't, you got to see if anybody could use a quarterback. If not, if it's one QB, it might sound crazy, but drop one of those dudes for a position player. You got too many quarterbacks. If you have 3 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league, you have 2 quarterbacks too many. Pick up some position players. You never know what's going to happen. Between Pacheco and Stevenson, I would go Pacheco. Ramondre's been fine, and the matchup is good, but there's some volatility with that Patriots offense in general. They're not good. Mac Jones stinks. If they turn to Bailey Zappi, that's not much better. Stevenson could come through with some volume, but Pacheco is just in a better offense, a more stable offense, an offense that should have more scoring opportunities than one like New England, even in a good matchup against the Giants. I would play Pacheco. And then the wide receiver between Tank Dell has shot up, like, as far as opportunities and expectations and all that good stuff. It's close. It's really close. I would prefer to play both of those guys, but if you can't play all of those guys, then you have to play Mike Evans. You have to play Mike Evans for the upside and the floor. He's been a wide receiver 2 or better in every game but 1 this year. Every game but 2 this year, excuse me. But in that other game, in one of those 2 games that he didn't finish as at least a wide receiver 2, he was still a wide receiver 3. And Evans has 3 top 8 performances this year. You got to play Evans. If you can only play one, I would say you got to play Evans. Got to play Evans. I wish you could play Evans and Tank Dell, but if you can only play one, I would give the slight nod to the veteran. Give me Evans. So Stroud, Pacheco, Evans. If the trade deadline's over, I know it might feel weird, it might look weird, but you don't need 3 quarterbacks. I would drop at least one for a random running back. You never know who might get hurt. A random wide receiver if there's a decent option available on the wire. Maximize your flex options, not your quarterback options. That's just a rule of thumb that I like to lean on in 1 quarterback leagues. With Burrow out, Russ, Minshew, Mayfield, Carr. Russ would probably be the guy, but he's in a brutal matchup against Cleveland. I don't trust Carr, mostly because he stinks. I guess it's between Minshew and Mayfield for me. Just looking at some data from Graham Barfield here. Mayfield has finished as a top 15 option at the quarterback position 6 out of 10 times this year. Has had a couple of QB1 performances. I would play Mayfield. Of those options, I would play Mayfield. The Colts give up decent production to opposing quarterbacks. I like Mayfield a little more straight up than Minshew. The difference being, at least Tampa Bay still has some solid pieces in their front seven on defense. The Colts, not quite as much. I mean, DeForest Buckner is still quite good, but Devin White, Vita Vey, um, I would just rather not go against them. It's a great matchup for opposing quarterbacks, but Mayfield has been a little steadier than Minshew. I would go Mayfield. Little steadier. Murray or Lawrence? I would go Kyler. I'll just give me the rushing upside. Lawrence can run, but Kyler does it better. Kyler does it better. Lawrence had a great week last week, but it has been an inconsistent, disappointing year for Lawrence this year on the whole. Maybe he turned a corner last week. Maybe the Jags offense turned a corner last week, but Murray is an elite rushing option at the quarterback position, and I think that's where I would go. I think that's where I would go. You can only start one running back between White, Bijan, and Jalen Warren. Yeah, so Rachaad White popped up on the injury report. So you feel a little less strongly about him. Bijan has a tougher matchup, but it's Bijan. You might just have to trust him. And Warren has a good matchup, and he's supposedly going to get the ball more, according to this report. Warren's going to get the ball more today than Najee Harris. Like, okay, we'll see. With Ritter as the Falcon starter, Bijan has been pretty good as a pass catcher. He gets a lot of targets. The answer would have been for me clear cut Rachaad White prior to the report that he's on, or that he's on the injury report, a late add to the injury report with this knee injury. He's expected to play, but could he see a few fewer opportunities? It's possible. I think you just play Bijan and hope for the best. Yes, it's a bad matchup. And Tyler Algier gets in there an annoying amount. Rachaad White is actually the bell cow of these three guys this year, but it could be a little bit more of a committee today if his knee is bothering him. I guess I would just go Bijan and hope for the best. He catches the ball a decent amount in Ritter starts, and Ritter is starting today. 6 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. Only 2 targets week 5, but 8 targets week 6. These are all games that Ritter played. He didn't really play against Tampa Bay. 5 targets in week 8. He didn't catch any of them, but at least he got the 5 targets. And then the past couple of weeks, it was 2 targets. It was 2 targets week 10, 4 targets week 9. So he's been pretty safe bet for 4 targets as a floor. He had at least 5 targets with Ritter 5 different times, topping out at 8. So he's getting a lot of looks in the receiving game. You figure that that's going to be the case today at home against New Orleans. I would just play Bijan. I would just play Bijan and hope for the best. Let's see. I got my member questions. Kyron, Bijan, Cook, Ramondre. Play Bijan. Play Bijan and hope for the best. I would want to say James Cook, but I think in full PPR, I would go Ramondre. I don't trust the Patriots offense that, they're like Bailey Zappi might play some, whatever, they might get him in the mix if Mac Jones is struggling, but this is the New York Giants. If relegation was a thing in the NFL, it would be the Giants. They are the worst team in football. They are atrociously bad um, in all facets. Other than Saquon Barkley, they don't do anything well. That is especially so on defense. I would just play Ramondre and hope for the best. Bijan, tough matchup, but he's at home and he catches the ball when Ritter's in there. Um, and I would go Ramondre. Cook's got a slightly tougher matchup um, against the Eagles front seven. And Kyron's got a great matchup, but I like Bijan and Ramondre a little bit more today. Half PPR, James Cook or Javonte Williams. This is where I would go James Cook. Javonte is just tough to trust. Sean Payton is giving all of the targets to Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin for whatever reason. He's at home, so he might be fine, but this is a bad matchup against Cleveland. I just don't love the spot that Javonte is in. He gets important usage, but he doesn't get targets. It's good. It could be rough sledding for Javonte today. It's not a great spot for James Cook either, but the Eagles' defense is more suspect than the Browns' defense. So I would go Cook personally. Javonte's just tough to trust. Hey, Alex, good to see you, man. What's going on? Between Demario Douglas and Marquise Brown, I mean, Hollywood, I guess. It's a really good matchup. The chemistry between him and Kyler hasn't quite been there yet, but I want to take, these are two bad teams. The Cardinals are not good. The Patriots are not good, but Kyler is better than Mac Jones by a significant margin. They're talking about mixing Bailey Zappi in if Mac Jones continues to struggle. I think I would go Hollywood. Douglas had a nice game last week, 6 for 84. The week before, he had 5 for 55. It's a great matchup against the Giants. Again, the Giants do nothing well. So, they're a great opponent to fire up against, but the Rams are a good opponent as well, are a great matchup for opposing wide receivers. I think I would go Marquise Brown. At least he's catching passes from Kyler. And in a pick'em, I mean, I gotta go Houston. It's hard to bet against C.J. Stroud right now, and it's a division game, so this could be a little bit of a tougher spot for him. But they're at home. Jacksonville has not been that scary on defense, especially recently. I gotta go Houston. I gotta go Houston at home. Stroud's on fire right now. You gotta ride that train. Between Odell and Demario Douglas, I guess I would go Demario Douglas. Beckham's been on the injury report this week, so, I mean, we'll see. We're starting to get inactives rolling in. I don't think there's going to be anything too surprising or anything that we weren't expecting. Rachaad White will play. I'm reading a tweet from one of the Bucks beat writers, Rick Stroud. The adding Rachaad White to the injury report, it was only precautionary, no structural damage to his knee. So Rachaad White is fine. You continue to fire him up. But yeah, I would go Demario Douglas over Odell Beckham. He was on the injury report earlier this week. Let's see, where am I at? Olave or Gabe? Olave. Olave for sure. Gabe has been uh, terrible recently. It's a great matchup, but Gabe has been bad, and he's been particularly bad on the road. I mean, two of his past three games, he's done nothing. He literally goose egged. And the one game that he did something, he only caught two balls. He turned it into 56 yards, but Gabe has been doing nothing for a month now, and he's been awful on the road. Olave at home with no Michael Thomas, for sure. Standard scoring, Pittman, Devontae Smith, or Chase. You can only play one of these dudes. Pittman. It's a great matchup. Minshew is a better backup quarterback than Jake Browning is. Chase is obviously the best player here, but I'll take Pittman in a great matchup at home against Tampa Bay. They're getting absolutely cooked by opposing wide receivers. I'll take Pittman. I'll take Pittman. He's been very good, and it's a great matchup. If you can only play one, I'll take Pittman. I don't want to sit Jamar Chase, but I mean, if it's a squeeze like this without his quarterback, I guess I'll put him on the bench, I guess. But I'll go Pittman. Let's see. Full PPR, would I change anything? Pittman, Dell, Kincaid, Pacheco, Devontae Smith. No, that looks good. That looks good. I would keep everything the way it is. Kincaid's a top 2 or 3 option this week. The Eagles don't have linebackers. They're down to like Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham or something like that. Like, yeah, no. Kincaid over Ingram for sure. Pacheco over those other running backs for sure. Yep, looks good to me. I wouldn't make any changes there. A defense question. Tennessee, Minnesota, Denver. I'm playing Tennessee. They're not that good, but Carolina is awful. Bryce Young's getting sacked at a crazy rate. They're not scoring points. I mean, they've scored a touchdown on, again, data from Graham Barfield. In Carolina's past 41 possessions, the last 41 times they've had a drive, they've scored a touchdown 3 times. He's getting sacked at a crazy rate. Like, Tennessee's not that good, but Carolina is that bad. They are awful. They have no threat on offense outside of a 33-year-old Adam Thielen, who is fine to fire up, by the way. But as far as just a team defense, give me the Titans. Give me the Titans. Denver's in a good spot at home against Cleveland, but Tennessee feels like they're in a slightly better spot. Vikings are in a good spot at home as well. They're just not that. They're okay. They're just not that good. They're not great. I would play Tennessee. I would play Tennessee. I think they're actually a top 5 or 6 play this week. Not because they're good, but because Carolina is that bad. Target the Carolina Panthers offense as for a team defense for the rest of the season. Who are the Panthers playing for the fantasy playoffs? I'm just going to throw this out there right now for everybody. Week 15, Bryce Young plays the Falcons. So you might want to grab the Falcons. Week 16, they play the Packers. So if you're still playing in the fantasy playoffs, then you might want to get the Packers. And then week 17 on the road against Jacksonville, you're going to want the Jags. So week 15, Falcons defense. Week 16, Packers defense. Week 17, Jaguars defense, all against the Carolina Panthers. Unless some miraculous turnaround happens over the next couple of weeks with them, you could fire up those defenses with all the confidence in the world if you're streaming defenses in the fantasy playoffs. Carolina stinks. They are absolutely putrid. So, Tennessee today because they're playing the Panthers. Um, would I start Ridley or Singletary in the flex? What's the scoring? If it's standard, I would play Singletary. If it's half PPR, I might still play Singletary. Um, although Ridley is enticing because he came back to life last week. If it's standard, I'll say Singletary, but if it's half or full PPR, I'll take the wide receiver. There could be a decent amount of points scored in Jags Texans. Standard, Singletary, but if it's half or full PPR, I'll take the wide receiver. I'll take Calvin Ridley. And the trade deadline pass. All right, yeah. I mean, if your trade deadline is over and it's a one quarterback league and you have more than two quarterbacks on your roster, change that. It's just okay. Yes, you're maybe giving a quarterback away for free to waivers, but you don't need him. What you can use, because everybody can use it, is more running back depth. Like pick up maybe it's not worth it at this point because apparently Rashad White is fine, but you could pick up Chase Edmonds or Sean Tucker in case something happens to Rashad White. Pick up another random backup running back for one of the starters that you have. Um, give me more flex options than more quarterback options. Ridley, Cooper, Flowers, or Deontay Johnson in full PPR. I guess I would go Ridley. He came back to life last week. Let's see if he can make it two in a row. Cooper catching passes from a rookie. We need to see more until we put Cooper back into our lineups. Flowers should be fine. It's a great matchup, but he was on the injury report this week, so he could be a little limited. He did practice on Friday, but could be a little bit of a tougher go if he was not able to practice Wednesday and Thursday. And with Deontay, the vibes are weird with Deontay Johnson right now. He got into an altercation with a teammate. Apparently, they want to target George Pickens a little bit more. It's like, okay. I mean, you can say that. It's easier to say we're going to give a running back more carries. I feel like it's more difficult to say, yeah, we're definitely going to target this other wide receiver more. I mean, well, we'll see. The vibes, though, with Deontay are not super great right now. So just go Ridley. Flowers would be my call if he was healthy, but he missed practice a couple times this week, and Ridley came to life last week, so I'll go Ridley. And then between McBride or Kincaid, dude, both. Both. I'm just curious to know who's in your flex. I mean, it's tough to fire up two tight ends, but both. I guess McBride, if you can only play one. Kyler seems to like throwing him the ball. The Rams are getting absolutely cooked by opposing tight ends. What have been teams doing against the past four? Well, the past 4 weeks, the Eagles have actually been giving up the top three production to opposing tight ends. The Rams have actually been a little bit better the past 4 weeks. Who have they played? Like by the numbers, they've been a little bit better against opposing tight ends the past 4 weeks. Last week, they played Seattle, who doesn't have an option at tight end. They played the Packers with Luke Musgrave. They played the Cowboys, who have some combination of Jake Ferguson and Luke Schumacher. And then Pittsburgh, they had, okay. So the only reason that the Rams numbers look a little bit better against tight ends the past 4 weeks is because they haven't played any tight ends the past 4 weeks. The best one of that group is, I guess, Ferguson, and then Musgrave, who is a rookie on a lackluster offense. I would play McBride. It's close, but I would play McBride. But Kincaid is a top 3 option this week. Like those are both, yeah. McBride and Kincaid are top 3 options this week at tight end. They should both be really good. I would lean McBride. What's up, Fortune? Good to see you, bro. Happy Thanksgiving. And yes, for another time, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hopefully everybody had a good holiday, however you spent it. Marquise Brown or Amari Cooper. I would go Hollywood. It hasn't been there quite yet for Hollywood, but Amari Cooper is going through a rough stretch without Deshaun Watson. He's had 14 targets in the past 2 games with DTR, or in the 2 starts with DTR. Cooper has 14 targets. Only 6 were catchable, according to Graham Barfield. Denver's been better in the secondary recently. Patrick Surtain is still a very good corner in this league. And they're on the road. It's actually not a good spot. It's not a good spot matchup-wise for Amari Cooper, and it's not a good situation because of the quarterback that he's catching passes from. At least Marquise has Kyler back, and it hasn't materialized quite yet, but in this matchup against the Rams, it certainly could. The Rams are giving up a lot of production to outside wide receivers on the season anyway. And they're at home. I would play Hollywood. I would play Hollywood. Hasn't quite been there yet, but he's a better option. He's a better option than Amari Cooper. Let's see. I got Dub Nation's questions. Flex 1 in half PPR, Mixon or Nico. I would play Mixon. Yes, the Bengals offense is tough to trust without Joe Burrow, but Mixon should continue to get decent volume. Nothing super scary about the matchup, believe it or not, against Pittsburgh. I would take Mixon. I would take the running back who you still expect to get a decent amount of work. They should be running the ball more with the backup quarterback, not less. As far as the defenses between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, they're both good options. As a default, I would probably just play the Browns because they are the better defense. They are just better. It's not a great matchup. They're on the road, but so is Pittsburgh. Denver is still not a great offense. Cleveland should be fine against Russ. Their ceiling is maybe not quite as high in this matchup, especially being on the road, but they should be fine. I would fire up Cleveland. They are when you have 2 good options, just play the better defense and drop the other one. Like quarterbacks, if you have 2 defenses on your roster, you have 1 defense too many. Just play the Browns. Just play the Browns. The Browns are, I don't know that there's a bad matchup on the Browns schedule for the rest of the season. If you have the Cleveland Browns, drop all other options for a flex play, for an option in flex, more depth at running back, another option at wide receiver. Who's Cleveland got for the rest of the season? They got Denver today. Nothing scary about that. They got the Rams. Nothing scary about that. They got Jacksonville, but that's a home game, so they should be fine. Bears, Texans, that could be a tough spot, but they're still the Cleveland Browns. And then week 17 against the Jets. I mean, for me, there's not another option I'd rather have rest of season. Maybe the Cowboys. But yeah, I would just rock with if you have the Browns, rock with the Browns. No need to roster a second defense. You can only flex 1 between Bijan Kamara and Kyren Williams. Just play Kamara. Man, we need to expand these starting lineups in these leagues. You guys are getting penny pinched for, you have all these good options, but you can't play them all. We got to have a conversation with y'all's commissioners. Play Kamara. Um, he's been steady. He's been safe. He's been more predictable in a good way than Bijan Robinson has. Bijan continues to split work with Tyler Algier for some reason. So Mixon over Nico, Browns over Steelers, and anybody not named Dallas rest of season, and Kamara. Kyron or Pacheco? Go Pacheco. It's a great matchup for Kyron Williams, but it is his first game back from an IR stint. He hasn't played in 5 weeks. That includes the Rams bye week. Pacheco has been looking good. Good matchup against the Raiders. When you have an option like Pacheco, you can wait on Kyron for a week. I would go Pacheco. And then as far as who to, I mean, if you play Pacheco, do you have to drop it? Just leave Kyron on IR unless you have to make other roster moves. If you have to, if you have Pacheco in your starting lineup already and you still have Kyron on injured reserve, just leave him there. If you do not have to make another roster move, if your lineup is set, then do nothing. And then you can reassess next week. Because if something happens to Alexander Madison, you'll be happy you kept on to Ty Chandler. Which I guess is the guy I would keep regardless because he's running back depth. It would probably be Jacoby Myers, but if you don't have to do anything, if you don't have to set your starting lineup, then don't activate Kyron. If your lineup is set, keep Kyron in IR. And then that way you have another week that you can wait and just see what happens, and then you can reassess next week if you want to fire, if and when you want to fire him up. I would, if your starting lineup is set, I would drop nobody, and I would leave Kyron in IR. That's what I would do. And yeah, I mean, if Kincaid and McBride are available, you might as well grab both, and Engram can be the drop. That being said, I don't like rostering more than one tight end either. It's like on my bench, I want like 5 or 6 running backs or 4 or 5 running backs and then maybe like 1 or 2 wide receivers. Your bench should consist of running backs and wide receivers, not backup quarterbacks, backup tight ends, and backup defenses. Unless you play in SuperFlex, then you want that QB3. Yeah, I just don't like, and I know it's tough with the trade deadline. It's probably past all that good stuff. I just don't like rostering. When I only have to start one at each position, I only want to roster one at each position until I have to actually make a choice. And then a super flex, Bryce Young or London. Bryce Young cannot be trusted. He's going backwards, right? We can't declare like bust or anything like that yet with Bryce Young. It's too early, but he is going backwards the past 4 weeks, the past month. It has not been good. I have no reason to believe right now that that's something to believe in this week, even though the matchup on paper is not bad. I like the Tennessee defense as a stream this week because of the Carolina Panthers offense and how bad it is. London, he's not going to see Marshawn Lattimore today. Lattimore's on IR, so it's a little bit better for him, and at least he's at home. I would play London. I would play London over Bryce Young. I do not trust Bryce Young. I want to play the defenses that are going up against Bryce Young. So, London. Yeah, London in Superflex over Bryce Young. That's how bad it is for Bryce Young. I don't want to play him in Superflex as a QB2. Not at all. All right, let's see. We got a few options here. Pick one for the flex between Hollywood, Downs, Hunt, or Cook. In full PPR, uh, Downs is a good option. Hunt is a decent option. I think James Cook is your best option. It's not the best matchup against the Eagles, but sometimes I just like to default, like, who's on the best offense? The answer is James Cook. And he had a nice game last week. Yes, he fumbled, but he bounced back nicely. Had good usage, had good involvement. And he should be fine as a pass catcher out of the backfield because the Eagles linebackers are not great. I would go Cook. He might not have a ton of success running the football today. The Eagles front is pretty strong. But I got to imagine he gets in there as a pass catcher. And the Eagles linebackers are a certainly beatable matchup. I would go James Cook as the first one. And then between the wide receivers, DJ Moore or Ridley, in full PPR, Ridley came back to life last week. He's been up and down, but last week came back to life. DJ Moore had a nice game last week, 7 for 96 and a touchdown. He's got 9 targets in 3 of his past 5 games. He's cleared 50 yards receiving in 5 of his past 6 games. Ridley's been all over the damn map this year. I will say, depends on your matchup, and it depends on how aggressive you want to be. If you think you can play it safe, I would play DJ Moore. If you think you need to be aggressive and go for the wide receiver 1 performance, I would go Ridley. Just depends on what you think you need. Between Ford, Singletary, and Connor, I would probably go. It's between Connor and Ford. Singletary takes a bit of a hit with Dameon Pierce back. I guess I would go Connor. Both of those defenses, the Rams and the Broncos, have actually been a little bit better against opposing running backs recently. On the season, the Broncos are still the most favorable matchup for opposing running backs, but they have been better of late. I guess I would go Connor. He's been getting 15-plus opportunities the past couple of weeks. All he has to do is fall into the end zone, and he's going to be a top 15 option on the week. I would go Connor. And then of that, the fourth option, yikes. Like Mitchell, I guess. Mitchell. And just hope for a big play. Hopefully that he can break a big play. It's a great matchup against the Chargers, at least. He seems to be running ahead of Justice Hill. I would go Mitchell. Not Odell, not Amari Cooper. He's not the same player without Deshaun Watson. And Chandler is a backup running back in a good matchup, but Mitchell looks better, looks more explosive. Both are in good matchups, but Mitchell looks like the better player, the more explosive player than Ty Chandler. And Fortune, I see your question down here. I would not. I would not. I would just play Nico and Ramondre. First of all, the report is that he's unlikely to play anyway. I don't trust Brandon Powell over, if it's like, would I rather play Nico and Ramondre and play it safe or roll the dice on a less than 100% Justin Jefferson and have to play Brandon Powell? Just give me Nico and Ramondre. Adam Schefter's reporting it's unlikely that Jefferson will play week 12. This makes sense. Teams do this. They hold players out through the bye week out of abundance of caution. They shouldn't need Jefferson to beat the Bears. He's not. I would be shocked if he played. I would be even more shocked if he played and got his full complement of snaps. To that point, why put him out there if you don't want him out there less than 100%? You don't want him to re-aggravate a soft tissue injury like a hamstring injury. I can't imagine he plays. Just play the guys that you already have intended to play. I would play Nico. I would play Ramondre. We can fire Justin Jefferson up in week 14. Another question involving the Titans defense. The Titans defense is a top 6 or 7 play for me this week. They're not great, but Carolina's that bad. So absolutely I would play the Titans. The Broncos have been better recently. They're in a good spot. I just think the Titans are in a slightly better spot. I think their floor is remarkably safe today. Going against the Panthers. And then my first kicker question today. Dicker for the Chargers or Greg Joseph? Probably Dicker. He's just on the better. He's attached to the better offense. No weather concerns in LA. No weather concerns in the Dome either. But he's attached to the better offense. They should have more success moving the ball. I'll take Dicker at home against the Ravens. You worry that the Vikings convert more of their scoring opportunities into touchdowns against the bad Bears defense, as opposed to it's possible that the Ravens defense forced the Chargers to stall out a couple more times and they settle for field goals. I'll take Dicker over Joseph. Cooper Kupp or Jaylen Warren? Normally this would be a no-brainer for Cooper Kupp, but I mean, the reports are that Warren is supposed to get more opportunities. Remember, the Steelers fired Matt Canada, which means that they may say, screw it, we're putting what we think is our best player out there more frequently. Warren might be, more of a bell cow today than he has been in games past, in weeks past. I think I go Warren. Remember, Kupp left the game last week due to injury. Apparently, he's fine, but that makes it a little bit more dicey for him, a little bit more volatile for him. I think Warren is much safer, and I think that's where I would go. I would go Warren. Oh, and it's full PPR. This is the question: Ridley versus Singletary. I go Ridley. In full PPR, that makes it a little easier for me. Definitively, I would go the wide receiver and just chase the good performance that he had last week. Singletary's been awesome, but Dameon Pierce is back. Singletary's back. Or, excuse me, Pierce is back, so that hampers Singletary a little bit. I would go Ridley in full PPR. What's up, Callie? Good to see you, man. Herbert versus Dobbs. And again, one more time, I see everybody's question. I will get to everybody, but one of the perks of being a member of the channel is you get to jump the line. So I'm going to jump down and make sure that I get my members taken care of. Between Herbert or Dobbs, I would go Herbert. He's been playing pretty good. He's been better than Dobbs. Dobbs is once again down Justin Jefferson. Yes, it's a great matchup against the Bears, but Herbert has Keenan Allen. He has Austin Eckler. I guess for whatever it's worth, he's getting Gerald Everett back healthy. Maybe Quentin Johnson can keep his hands on the ball this time. And he's going to have to be aggressive against the Ravens at home. It's totally possible that they're playing at home without a lead or trailing, which means Herbert throws the ball even more. Game script could favor the run game for the Vikings this week playing the Bears. Without Justin Jefferson, I would play Herbert over Dobbs. And then is that Dell? Did Odell or is that Odell Beckham or Tank Dell? I'm not sure because of the apostrophe. Either way, one of them became Irish apparently. If it's Tank Dell, Tank Dell. If it's Odell or Rice, I would go Rice. At least Rice should have a few more. It's Beckham. Okay. Rice. I would go Rashee Rice. Mecole Hardman is on IR. Kadarius Toney is out today. Rice has been I guess the most consistent Chiefs wide receiver recently. So you figure the target share shrinks even more without those two wide receivers in the mix, without Hardman, without Kadarius in the mix. Give me Rice. Give me Rice. And Odell's been on the injury report this week, so give me Rice. All right. Let's go back up to the top. Kyren or Jamar Chase in full PPR. I know it's gross. I know it sucks without Burrow, but I think you got to go Jamar Chase. At least he's had a week of practice with Browning. He's had an opportunity to get some type of short term or very crunch time, short window chemistry built with Chase. That backup quarterbacks are going to highly hyper target and pepper their top options. With no T. Higgins, Chase should see 15 targets today. They might not be good targets, but it is volume. Volume is king. I'll go Chase over Kyren Williams for 1 week. And it's a great matchup for Kyren Williams, but this is Jamar Chase that we're talking about, even with a backup quarterback. Without T. Higgins, I got to imagine he sees 15 targets. He might see 20. Let's be real. Give me Chase. Jacobs, Keaton Mitchell, Ty Chandler, or Pickens. You got to go Jacobs. You got to go Jacobs, especially in half PPR. Give me the running back. Give me Jacobs. I don't think any one of those guys. Keaton Mitchell, no. Ty Chandler, absolutely not. George Pickens, I guess he's got a little bit more intrigue today. Apparently, he's going to see more targets. New offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh, so maybe they want to feature Pickens more. They want to feature Warren more. That's all well and good, but we're talking about Josh Jacobs here. We're talking about one of the few bell cows in the NFL at the running back position. I know it didn't develop for him last week against Miami, but he still got 15 opportunities. The 2 games prior to that, he had 27 and 26 carries. He's probably not going to have the chance for that many carries against Kansas City, but at least it's a home game for the Raiders. I gotta go Jacobs. Go back to the well with your RB1. Go back to the well with your RB1. Warren, Ramondre, or Madison at RB2, and this is full PPR. Ramondre. I know what the vibe is. Warren's going to get more work. Warren's going to get more opportunities. He might they didn't say the report that Warren's going to get more work and get more featured. It's not definitive that's going to be a bell cow role like Najee. You figure Najee still continues to mix in at least a little bit. With Ramondre, there's not really anybody behind. There's Zeke, but Najee Harris is better than Ezekiel Elliott, at least at this stage in their respective careers. Not that that's saying much. Man, I think I gotta play Ramondre. They gotta funnel production to their running backs. The Patriots do. Stevenson got 23 opportunities prior to the bye week in week 10. I mean, the argument for Jaylen Warren is that Jaylen Warren is going to see what we don't know how many opportunities he's going to get today, but apparently he might get his first crack at being the clear-cut top option in the backfield and not just like a 1A. He could be more than a 1A today. It's a good matchup for Warren as well against Cincinnati. But it's a great, I mean, but like the Giants are a great matchup for anybody. Any one of us could take 10 touches and probably turn it into a touchdown against the Giants. That's how bad they are. I think I got to go Ramondre, even though the vibes on Warren are very good right now. Um, and then is this Chase? Is this Nico, or Addison? You got to play Chase. You got to play Chase. Unless it's with remaining RBs, and if Chase is already in your starting lineup, then I would go. Man, Addison's got a great matchup against the. I was a little surprised. I haven't seen Addison today, but I would play Nico. I would play Nico over Addison, but I would play Chase over both. So Ramondre slightly over Warren for me. I haven't mentioned Madison here because I don't want to. It's between Ramondre and Warren for me. Madison is uninspiring, and even in a great matchup, not somebody I'm super interested in. I'll play Ramondre slightly over Warren, and then I gotta play Jamar Chase. I know it's gross, but at least he caught a touchdown last week. Like, it's Jamar Chase. With no T. Higgins, he might see 15 to 20 targets today. I'll say Chase. And then again, one more time, as far as the Titans and the Broncos, I think I've gotten this question a few times today. The Broncos are a solid option. I think the Titans are a slightly better one. They are playing the Carolina Panthers, who are atrocious on offense. I like the Broncos as an option today. I like the Titans better. I think their floor is incredibly high. Herbert or Chandler in full PPR. So Donta Foreman is not expected to play. I would go Herbert. You figure that the Bears are going to be trailing in this game because they're probably going to be trailing in damn near every game from here on out. Donta Foreman he's doubtful, right? I don't know if he's officially been ruled out. It's Monday night, so they might wait. Foreman is being listed as doubtful. Herbert got, all of the opportunities last week when he came back, or a lot of them. Give me Herbert. He's more likely to get the bulk of opportunities over Ty Chandler. I don't think he will. He might force a backfield split, but Herbert is the dude without Donta Foreman, I would say, rather definitively. So give me Herbert, especially in full PPR. He's going to catch passes. Donta Foreman's out. Yeah, Herbert over Chandler. Let's see. 12-team PPR. You traded Mixon for Waddle. That's pretty good. I would say that's pretty good. You have ETN, Kamara, Kyron. This is just a thumbs up, thumbs down. I say that's a thumbs up. Well, and Waddle had a really good game against the Jets. And now that game is it's out of the way, it's off the schedule. When do the Dolphins play the Jets again? I feel like it's like a week 18, which means it's not going to matter for fantasy. Hopefully none of you are playing week 18 fantasy championships. God, I hope not. Oh, no, it's Buffalo. Oh, they do get the Jets again in week 15, but that's okay. Waddle plays well against the Jets, and he just did again on Black Friday. 8 catches for 114 yards. That'll do. That'll do just fine. Yeah, I like it. I mean, Mixon, I'm okay with Mixon. I think he'll be okay because he'll come through on volume. You figure the Bengals are going to run the ball a little bit more from here on out with a backup quarterback. But I mean, Waddle's a top 15 wide receiver, or he was drafted as one anyway. It hasn't quite materialized that way so far this year, but I'll bet on a talent like Waddle, especially in full PPR. You got good running backs. Yeah, that's good. I like it. I like it. And then as far as Herbert or Stroud, I would go Stroud. Uh, I'm not moving away from Stroud until he gives us a reason not to. He's been awesome. There's nothing scary about the matchup against Jacksonville. And I think we can have a fair amount of confidence in the Houston Texans, which is a sentence we are saying in the year 2023, which is crazy. Considering how bad, yeah, I mean, the Texans have been putrid. 2022, they were awful. 2021, they were awful. 2023, CJ Stroud has us talking about the Houston Texans. Yeah. Stroud. Stroud. And then Pacheco or Devontae Smith. In full PP. I mean, yes, I would. If I don't want to drop Ingram, but if McBride is out there, yes, I'd rather have McBride. Pacheco or Devontae Smith in full PPR. It's close. It's really close. I think I would lean Pacheco as your safe play. It's a great matchup. He's looked good recently. Maybe he catches a few more passes. He gets a couple more opportunities with these wide receivers. With Tony out, with Mecole Hardman out, maybe he sees a few more targets. Pacheco's looked pretty good recently. I think that's where I would go. Beal, thank you for the super. That was very kind of you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Puka or Pittman in full PPR? Can you only start one of these dudes? Because that's unfortunate. Because I want to play both of them. If I can only play one in full PPR, I got to play Pittman. First of all, it's a spectacular matchup. It's a good matchup for Puka as well, but it's a better matchup for Michael Pittman. I mean, he's got 8 catches his last 3 games. 2 of those games, he went over 60 yards receiving, and then the one that he didn't, he caught a touchdown. He's gone over 60 yards receiving, Pittman has, in 4 of his past 5 games. In 3 of those games, he's gone over 80 yards receiving, and he does have a 100-yard game back in week 6. I mean, 11 targets, 12 targets, 11 targets. He had a down week 4. Still was 5 targets. 7 targets, 14 targets, 5 targets week 7, not a ton, but that was a bad matchup against Cleveland. He still turned it into 2 for 83 and a touchdown. 13 targets, 8 targets, 12 targets. Figures he's probably going to see at least 10 targets today. It's been a really good connection between him and Gardner Minshew. Pittman is the first read on Minshew's targets 35% of the time. That's insane. And the Bucs are getting absolutely scorched by opposing wide receivers recently. I wish I could play both of these guys because I'm perfectly fine with Puka. I feel very confidently about Puka today as well. And it's totally possible that Cooper Kupp is limited. Remember, he exited last week's game. He's apparently fine. He's not on the injury report, but you never know with these types of things with older players. Puka should be just fine today, but you got Diggs and Dell. You can't play. Yeah, okay, you can play. Yeah, it's got to be Pittman. I think you got to play Pittman. The matchup is spectacular. Are the Bucks the best matchup for opposing wide receivers the past 4 weeks? I feel like they are. No, they're top 5 though. The Bucks are giving up over the past 4 weeks in like default PPR scoring. The Bucks are giving up an average of 46 points per game to opposing wide receivers. Now that includes all wide receivers, obviously, but I mean they're getting scorched. 6 touchdowns allowed over the past 4 weeks. Teams are converting in the red zone against the Bucks at a ridiculous rate. They're at home. I got to play Pittman. And then as far as Pacheco versus Rashad White, if this is this also full PPR? Is it Pacheco? Is it full PPR for the running back question as well? If it is, I'm going Rashad White. Apparently, the injury was precautionary, or him being added to the injury report was precautionary. Apparently, he's fine. The knee is okay. Rashad White's been a beast recently. He's catching the ball at a high rate, at a highly successful rate. He did well last week in a bad matchup against the 49ers. Pacheco's been good, but in full PPR, I'd rather play Rashad White, who is the clear-cut, bigger receiving threat out of the backfield. I'm not worried about the White injury. I just saw it was from one of the Bucs beat reporters, Rick Stroud. It was precautionary, adding him to the injury report. I think he's okay. He should be good to go. There's nobody in the Bucs backfield that you worry about as far as siphoning work away. Sean Tucker's not that great. Chase Edmonds, same. I would still believe in Rashad White despite the injury development, because apparently it was nothing more than precautionary, according to one of the Bucs beat reporters. So I'm going Rashad White. I'm not worried about Rashad White is game script proof, because if they're winning, they'll run with him. If they're losing, they'll throw it to him. It's that simple. Rashad White is an elite pass catching option at the running back position, and in full PPR, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go. 6 of his last 7 games, he's been a top 20 option. He's got an overall RB1 performance in there. He's been as steady as it gets. I would go Pittman, and I would go White. Pittman, great matchup, and White, as far as I'm concerned, is matchup proof. But appreciate the Superman. Very kind of you. Thank you so much. And best of luck. What's going on, Iron? Good to see you. And yes, Chase over Ridley with Higgins out. You would think he sees anywhere from 15 to 20 targets. I don't know that that's an exaggeration. I would go Chase over Ridley. And just I see everybody's. I know we got a half hour till the slate starts. I see everybody's questions. I am getting to my members first, and if you feel generous enough to offer a super, you don't have to, but I will prioritize those as well. One of the member perks is your questions get to jump the line, but I will get to everybody. We will make sure that we get everybody's start sit questions answered. Appreciate everybody's patience. So yes, Iron, Chase over Ridley for me. He should be just fine. It's more of a floor game for Jamar Chase than a ceiling game from here on out, but Jamar's floor is better than most players' floors and a decent number of players' ceilings. So I think you just play Jamar Chase. And then I got a quick kicker question from Callie. That's okay. You can ask kicker questions. That's just fine. Who is Indy's kicker these days? Oh my God, I'm blanking hard. It's Matt Gay. No, I would play Dicker. I'll take the kicker attached to Justin Herbert. I'll take the kicker attached to Justin Herbert over the kicker attached to Gardner Minshew. And I really think Indy's going to convert enough of their opportunities into touchdowns throwing the ball to Michael Pittman and Josh Downs because the Bucs secondary has been that bad. I'll take the kicker for the Chargers, especially because it wouldn't surprise me to see the Ravens force the Chargers to stall out and therefore settle for field goals. I would give me Dicker attached to Justin Herbert. That's my personal preference. Tampa's giving up points, but they're giving up touchdowns. They're giving up touchdowns, not field goals. The Ravens are actually a slightly better matchup for kickers than the Bucs. I would go Dicker. That's a good collection of wide receivers, Iron. You should be just fine with those guys. Bunch of studs, including Tank Dell. Tank Dell's a stud. All right, back up to the top. Superflex question. Eckler, Pacheco, or Kyler Murray? Oh man. Oh, I can't sit Austin Eckler. But I mean, it's super flex, so I mean, you probably have no choice but to play Kyler. I mean, but this is Austin Eckler we're talking about. This is a surefire, bona fide RB1. You have to play Kyler. It's super flex. You have to play Kyler. It sucks that you rolled the dice on Charbonnet and he didn't deliver. You got to play Kyler. You got to play the quarterback. You got to play the quarterback in Superflex. You got to play Kyler. I don't want to sit Eckler at all, but you got to play Kyler Murray. You got to play the quarterback in Superflex. If it was like, any lesser option, then it would be, if it was Mayfield or Dobbs or Jordan Love, he already played on Thanksgiving. If it was Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, well, then it's obvious it's Austin Eckler. But Kyler is a top 10 option, assuming that, he can, that he's removed enough from the ACL that he can run and all that stuff. You got to play Kyler. You got to play Kyler in Superflex. Fields, Howell, and Lawrence, rest of season. Not Howell. Not Howell. I guess Fields because he runs. He's back healthy now, all that good stuff. I would take Fields rest of season. Let's see. I got Fortune's questions. Full PPR, Calvin Ridley or Jerome Ford. It's a great matchup for Ford. But Ridley had a nice bounce back last week. I'll say, I mean, it depends on how aggressive you need to be. If you want to play it safe, Jerome Ford. If you're in an underdog matchup and you think you need to play aggressive, then I would go Ridley. So I would say it depends on your matchup. It depends on your situation. It depends on your opponent. If it's looking like you can, you want to take the safe play, Ford. If you think you need to be aggressive because you're an underdog, Ridley, especially in full PPR. Full PPR, I'm slightly full PPR. I'm going to be a little bit more partial to the wide receiver just in general. But Ford is a fine option in a pretty good matchup. The Broncos have been better against running backs recently, for what it's worth. So maybe just go Ridley. Ford should be fine. Ridley might be a little. I think for now we still have to call him kind of boom bust, but last week was a boom. So maybe he can string something together this week. Let's see. Freiermuth, Otten, or Hunter Henry. I am doing well. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, however it was spent. Between Muth, Otten, or Hunter Henry, Henry's tough to trust because I don't know what the hell's going on with the Patriots. Well, yes, I do. Mac Jones stinks, and Bailey Zappi's not much better. Otten is not a great start. I would probably roll the dice on Freiermuth. Apparently, Pittsburgh's apparently trying to shake things up on offense. They want to give Pickens more targets. They want to give Warren the ball more. They fired Matt Canada. That can only be a positive thing for the Steelers. This offense has been atrocious with him calling the plays. He's out. Freiermuth has been. We've seen him be a top 10 tight end. Yes, he's coming back from injury, but those other two guys are so uninspiring. I might just fire up Freiermuth. He was limited last week, but he's coming off the hamstring injury. He should probably be more healthy this week. I would just roll the dice on him. And it sounds like there's a non-zero chance that Deontay Johnson is like getting punished for this altercation apparently that happened between him and Minkah Fitzpatrick. So maybe there's a few more targets available. For Freiermuth, I would go Freiermuth. I would just roll the dice on the Muth. Let's see. Ritter or Browning? What's going on, Notorious? Ritter runs, but he's not good. Browning, we have no idea what Browning is. Ritter, he's at home. You only feel good about Ritter when he's at home, and he is today. He is this week. He runs a little bit more. He could be, they could call his number in the red zone. There's no Marshawn Lattimore to deal with, so it's a softer matchup for Drake London. I would go Ritter, and at least he runs a little bit. Browning, I just don't know what we have in Brown. I know what we have in Ritter. It's not a good quarterback, but at least he's a mobile quarterback. I mean, Browning with no T. Higgins, I've very little confidence in. I would go Ritter. At least he runs. Full PPR, you need a flex. Puka, London, Singletary, Rashad White, Jerome Ford. Man, a lot of good options. Rashad White. I like Rashad White quite a bit. He's not the best runner in the world, but he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. And in full PPR, that boosts his floor. That really boosts his floor. The injury, for everybody, apparently, according to Rick Stroud, you can go on X, now Twitter, or formerly Twitter, now X. Rick Stroud, he's a beat reporter for the Tampa Bay Bucks, reported that apparently the add to the injury report for Rashad White was nothing more than precautionary. But it sounds like the full intention is that he's going to play. It doesn't sound like restrictions are a super big concern. 6 catches last week. 2 catches for 47 yards and a touchdown week 10. 4 catches week 9. 7 catches week 8. 6 catches week 7. Rashad White is a rock-solid floor play, especially in full PPR. with how much he catches the ball. He's not a great runner, but he gets the ball. He gets the rock. And he delivered last week in a bad performance against San Francisco. It's not as bad of a matchup this week against Indy. In fact, it's a great matchup against Indy. They're giving up top 5 production against running backs the past 4 weeks. Rachaad White. Even though there's lots of guys there that I would like to play. You got a lot of good options. I like White quite a bit. Apparently, the add to the injury report was nothing more than precautionary. I would not be worried about him. You want to fire him up. And if you're just looking for a strong floor, Rachaad White gives that to you in full PPR with how much he catches the ball. Rachaad White. Mixon, Kyren, Puka, pick 2 in full PPR. Mixon and Puka. Mixon and Puka. I mean, Kyron's in a great matchup. He's in a great matchup. The Cardinals are getting scorched by opposing running backs. But it is Kyron's first game back off of injured reserve. And it's his first game playing in 5 weeks. They did waive Darrell Henderson, so that's a vote of confidence for Kyren. But Puka in full PPR has been a stud more weeks than not, and I still believe in Mixon from a volume perspective, even with the backup quarterback. I would go Mixon, and I would go Puka. 15 minutes to go before kickoff. I got Abil. Thank you again for the super. I got some of my most recent member questions. So we are down to these last couple questions here. Just want to say appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out this morning or afternoon, wherever you are ahead of the slate. Appreciate the engagement. Appreciate the conversation. Let's win these matchups this week. Warren or Mixon in half PPR. So again, the vibes with Jaylen Warren right now are very good. They're very strong. Apparently, the new offensive coordinator wants to give Warren more opportunities. They want to get him on the field more often, which would make sense. Warren looks way better than Najee Harris. I'm still going with Mixon because there is no question who the bell cow is for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they should run the ball even more with a backup quarterback in there. I like Warren quite a bit. He is a great flex option if you're between other lesser options, but a guy like Joe Mixon, I'm not worried about even with the backup quarterback. He's getting all of the work. Getting a lot of opportunities, and he's getting all the red zone work, which is most important as well. I would go Mixon. I'll chase the volume, even though Warren is apparently supposed to get the volume today. How much remains to be seen. Give me Mixon. Puka or Devontae Smith in half PPR. I would probably go. It's close, but I would probably go Puka. It's a perfectly fine matchup for both. Perfectly fine matchup for both. It's a slightly better matchup for Puka. Puka's been more consistent this year. Kupp missed the game or exited the game early last week. Apparently he's fine, but older player dealing with multiple injuries this year. I would go with Puka. You know, Devontae Smith had a big game on Monday night at the expense of A.J. Brown doing much of anything. That could course correct back to A.J. Brown with no Tre'Davious White for the Bills. I would go Puka. And then Rachaad White versus or Mixon. Again, I like Mixon quite a bit, but if you can only pick one of these guys, if it's standard scoring, I would go Mixon, but if it's half or full PPR, I would go Rachaad White. The add to the injury report was apparently nothing more than precautionary. Rachaad White sounds like he's good to go in a spectacular matchup against the Colts. They're giving up a lot of production recently to opposing running backs. I would go Rashad White if I can only start one of those two guys. I think I got everybody. I'm just scrolling back up to make sure. It looks like I got everybody with about 15 minutes, now almost more like 10 minutes to spare. I got to check my own lineups and make sure everything is all good to go and is all set. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this thing down. Appreciate you guys coming in today and hanging out. Best of luck in your matchups. I know it's crunch time. We're in the race for the playoffs officially, so let's get these wins. I will be back on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern for Week 13 waivers and, of course, another general live AMA. So be sure to tune in then with the playoffs only a couple of weeks away after today. Best of luck. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out. Let's get these wins. Thank you, everybody.